Okay, question 17 on GRE practice test 1. I'm in section 5. The idea in this problem and the next couple that follow are really just to read this chart. So on problems like this, I probably wouldn't spend too much time looking at the chart until you read the question. There's a lot of info in here that you don't even end up using. But maybe just glancing at it, you can kind of tell that we're going to be given some different drinks here that fall in different categories, and we're essentially told how much caffeine they have. Unfortunately, we're not just told a single number, we're told a range of values, which I guess is a little bit more realistic. So in question 17, we're supposed to compare the least amount of caffeine in a 5-ounce cup of drip brewed coffee and the greatest amount of caffeine in a 5-ounce cup of cocoa. If we can get those two things off the chart, we can essentially be done with the problem. So first, the 5-ounce cup of drip brewed coffee. Well, that's a coffee. Here it is, the drip brewed coffee. Here's the bar telling us how much caffeine can be in drip brewed coffee. But remember, we want the least amount. So we go all the way over to the left here. We're talking about this value right here. What is this value? Unfortunately, you have to estimate it. I say unfortunately because most students get kind of annoyed by that. But good news with estimations. The test can only reasonably ask you to be so precise in your estimations, so you don't have to worry too much about it. If this is 50 and this is 75, this value looks like it's a little closer to 50 than 75. So I don't know, maybe 60. Realistically, it's probably a little less than 60. Maybe it's like 58 or something. But you don't have to worry about that. We're just supposed to ballpark this thing, pick a nice round number. The least amount of caffeine in a 5-ounce cup of coffee per this chart is 60. I guess our unit is milligrams, although we don't even have to worry about that. Do the same thing for the greatest amount of caffeine in a 5-ounce cup of cocoa. Well, cocoa is not coffee, nor is it a drug. I guess it would be under other beverages here. Here it is, cocoa. Here's the bar that we're talking about. This time I don't want to go on the left side of the bar because we're not talking about the least amount. I want the right side of the bar because we're talking about the greatest amount. So I look at the right side of the bar here, draw my line up. Not the straightest line in the world, but you get the idea. Some number in here. What is this number? Again, I'm not too worried about it. I just need to ballpark it. It's between 0 and 25. It's closer to 25 than it is to 0. So I don't know, maybe 20 or so. Again, that's probably not the exact value, but it'll be plenty close enough for our purposes. The greatest amount of caffeine in a 5-ounce cup of coffee is 20 milligrams. What I'm being asked is how much this 60 exceeds this 20 by. Well, 60 minus 20 is just equal to 40. Remember, these are all approximations, so I'm just looking for a number that's relatively close to 40 over here. Sure enough, I get exactly 40 in this case. But if 40 weren't listed, 39 or 41 or 38 or something would have to be. I guess you could kind of work backwards by looking at these answers and kind of doing a process of elimination thing here. But I think it's a lot easier just to ballpark them, subtract them, and look for something that's close. Worth pointing out that this little graph here, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's like a bar chart, but not quite because it's showing these different ranges. Anyways, it's presented kind of horizontally, but it could just as easily be presented vertically, right? I could have all these categories down at the bottom and then bars going up and down for each of these different drinks. I think that would be a little bit easier to read than what you see here because I think least being on the bottom and most being on the top is a little bit more obvious than least being on the left and most being on the right. But unfortunately with these graphs, there's no standard way of how they'll always look. So you have to make sure that regardless of how they present it to you on the test, you can read it and answer the appropriate question.